Welcome to the All of You podcast, where we believe healthy relationships are created by growing individually and pursuing a healthy relationship with yourself.
So let's take a deep breath. Settle in and grow together.
What a journey.
This is officially the 50th episode of the All of You podcast. Can you believe we actually made it to 50? We've been doing this an entire year.
Yeah,
Longer
we missed
than
a
that,
few
really.
weeks. We missed a few weeks, so we've been recording weekly for over a year. We missed a few weeks and we lost a lot of episodes.
We lost probably a good 20 episodes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just hard to keep up with.
Well, we lost the episodes typically due to tech issues. Like we would forget to clear a disk or accidents would happen.
Yeah,
or camera issues.
I was trying to not admit fault.
Oh, that's not what we do on this podcast.
It was mostly me. It's been a lot to
So there
learn.
were a few episodes where we had to scrap them because I'd be like, I can't do it. And I get all emotional. And then we'd be like, well, try again tomorrow. It'd be too
during
hard
the
for me.
wedding season, when the wedding got closer, it just was, we weren't doing ourselves a service by continuing to record. So we missed a few weeks, but we made it.
We made it.
We committed to a year. I had said, I want to commit to a year, and we made it.
You know that when you said that, I secretly was like, I doubt it. We'll see about that.
I know. You're always doubting me.
I'm always doubting you. But this little train keeps on trucking.
Yeah, got to keep going.
So for this episode, we want to cover some of the things that we've learned in this past year. Just a little life update and learning lessons from a year of podcasting, which probably are not going to really be about podcasting for the most part. This podcast has been the catalyst for an insane amount of growth.
Mhm.
I know for me, but I think for you as well. So let's do it.
Yeah, so let's first, I think, just get into where are we at?
Where
how
are
was
we
our
at?
life different than a year ago? Just a life update. A year ago, I was still working at my corporate job when we started. I did not plan on leaving it. I was going to do the podcast in the evenings, and I was having fun learning how to podcast. We started it as a hobby, not like, oh, we're going to
Be
eventually.
podcasters.
Yeah. We did not plan on becoming podcasters, although I would say it was a dream to maybe that one day we would be, but we got shipped into it pretty quickly. But yeah, a year ago, I was still working my corporate job. You were kind of in a hiatus with your job, and you were going to probably go back to work at some point soon. And we were just podcasting on our iPhones with $50 mics that we bought. And
In a really weird backdrop that you built in the shop.
well, okay. So the first iteration, it was scary to do video, to come right out the gates with video. The video was intimidating. I had never done any video editing. So we were doing it, and we planned to do it in the shop, but the shop background was I don't know, reflective insulation. So I needed to build something over it. So I built this wood wall, and then we were shooting it on a GoPro, and it just was terrible, and it was cold. It was in the middle of winter last year when we started shooting it. So it was really cold. It was really noisy because the roof rattled a lot. And then we moved into the house, and we've since podcasted in every corner of this house, I feel like.
We haven't done the kitchen or the girls' bedrooms.
Yeah.
Every other room has been a podcast studio at some
the
point.
playroom, our bedroom, and the living room. We're just messing around with lighting. Where does it look good? Where does the acoustics? In learning how to podcast, you just have to fail forward.
So much failing.
Yeah. We're still not done failing, by the way. This iteration of the podcast and where we're podcasting is not my final plan.
No, we have not arrived. And that's kind of the beauty of it, though, is
Mhm.
there isn't really going to be an arrival.
Yeah.
Such is life, right?
Yeah.
Always growing, always evolving. But I want to hop back to where else our life was
A year ago.
a year ago. We were not married.
Mm-hmm.
We were not even planning a wedding. When
We were engaged, but
we
yeah,
were
no.
engaged. We weren't planning a wedding,
Mhm.
though, when we started the podcast. We had not remodeled any of the yard or any of the inside of the house.
The girls were
And
sharing a room, and yeah. Oh, we had no plans on coaching.
correct.
We thought maybe it could turn into that eventually, but really it wasn't even a thought yet on actually coaching anyone.
Yeah, I think that's the bulk of the change.
And then slowly after my job ended, we had an opportunity to go, do you want to just lean into podcasting, or do you want to go back to work? And if we started other jobs, it was kind of like a pretty pivotal decision, because if I started another career, I don't know if I would have had the ability to learn when you start a job in a leadership role, it's really difficult to do a lot of side things. You're inundated with people, learning who's who, networking for a good first year at a new company. You're kind of grinding. So we were like, if we want to continue podcasting, we kind of have to lean in now. And then quickly, when we started this podcast, we got so many amazing messages from so many of you who are listening to this and just telling us the difference that it was making, and talking about relationships and talking about emotions and talking about the struggles with boundaries and partnership and limited beliefs and all this stuff. So we had people reaching out for coaching, and we were like, we don't really know what we're doing when it comes to coaching. So we have to learn. I mean, we had studied for ourselves. We never did any of this so that we could coach others. We did it so that we could have a healthier relationship and a healthier family. And then
One thing led to another, and we took classes to become coaches and
hired coaches to help us.
hired coaches. Yeah, it's been wild.
Yeah, we hired a business coach to help us with learning how to network online and learning how to move through that. And that brings us to where we're at now, which is we're still not done with the house. We're still not done with the podcast. We're upgrading the podcast all the time. We're starting to do more on YouTube. We want to do more YouTube shorts and talking about subjects maybe in a more condensed form. We're doing workshops and starting to do that. With our current house situation, we don't really have a great setup for this lifestyle of me and you working together, which is a whole nother complexity to this whole year.
Yeah.
Was that me and you had to learn how to work together, and we have an 1,100 square foot house. And so the organization with like mail, podcast gear, all this stuff is really bubbling over to us looking one day to go, we need an office.
So we're building it.
So we're building it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there comes in my other job, my next side hustle.
Dave the builder has cleared out a good portion of the shop, and we're starting out the office build since we need to like actually enclosed offices for coaching calls where it's private, no one can hear. And so that build begins.
Yeah, right now we get by with the bedroom and the living room, but we're realizing as we get more and more into this and book more calls that if our schedule is entirely full with clients, we are going to need the space to do it. So that's the next iteration of where we're at. And I kind of want that done by summertime. So I'm going to hustle.
Yeah. So with that said, now that we've kind of given the full update of where we're at now, I want to ask you, what has been the hardest part of this so far?
So I think going into this podcast, even the whole idea of having a podcast, I didn't really realize, And I guess how could you? But I didn't realize how much I would have to release other people's opinions of me. And I guess what I should say is I didn't realize how much I cared about other people's opinion. Like if you were to ask me, I'd be like, we'll just do it. It's fine. Whatever. It's a whole different thing when you release an hour episode with your wife. Like, I don't remember what we talked about, So I had to just I had to learn this muscle that is really being able to sleep at night, even though we have a bunch of content out there and I don't know what other people are thinking.
Or how they're going to perceive it.
Yeah. And I didn't know also that there's no way of controlling that because people view things through their perception. So I think the hardest thing absolutely for me has just been releasing other people's opinions. And we talk about really vulnerable stuff. So it's not like we're talking about sports. That would be a lot easier. But when we're talking about like our viewpoint of relationships, and relationships are such a personal thing, or our viewpoint on mental health, our viewpoint on depression, anxiety, sharing our viewpoint of that, it's difficult. It's really hard. Like it's just really hard to give a take on that and not care about what everyone thinks about you.
Yeah, and I think the story aspect of it too. We share a lot of our thoughts and our experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that sharing firsthand experiences is very vulnerable, and that's a unique challenge in itself that you never know who has listened to the episodes. And that's actually kind of a funny point in itself. We don't know who's listening to this right now. Some people tell us, most people don't. We just see the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talk to people not knowing that they could actually know some of our like deepest childhood wounds and not have any idea. So that's kind of a funny dynamic you have to get comfortable with, I think.
Yeah, and some people listen to some episodes and not everyone listens to every episode. So if you catch a certain episode where maybe my delivery was off or the way I said a certain subject and seemed so confident, I might seem arrogant, or they just like pick up on your personality through the episode. And I look back at some of our episodes and I go, that didn't really depict even necessarily how I would want to come across all the way. But you turn on the cameras, you try your best, and you keep doing that week over week. And it's really hard to not spend time thinking about, oh, I wonder who saw it or what they think of me. I'll even add, it can even be hard for me when I see people in person that I know and I don't know if they've listened. Because like if a subject got brought up, I'm like, they already know my take on this.
I'm beating a dead horse and I don't know it.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than I realized. That's what's been hardest for me for sure, is just all that, throw that all in a big, label of other people's opinions. And that's basically what I've had to release. What about you?
Hey friends, if you're struggling in your relationships, we want you to know we've been there and real change is possible.
So whether you're moving on from a breakup, working to strengthen your relationship, or just ready to show up differently in your life, we're here to help you out. Click the link in our bio and book a free 30-minute consultation with us, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together.
And if you're enjoying this episode, we would love it if you would like, subscribe, or share this podcast, because better relationships start with better conversations. Now back to the show. So I would say there's two things that have been the hardest for me. One, very similar to you, is other people's opinions. And I would say a step further than that is the negative comments. We don't get a lot of them, but when we do, that's been really hard for me. Actually, just last week, a man posted on a YouTube video we put up, "She's so annoying." And just even little things like that was really hard in the beginning. And I'm grateful for it though, because the negative comments, or even I've actually had to deal with people I know and love in my life who have actually said negative things to me directly about it. And that has caused me to have to heal things I wasn't even aware I had to heal, and become so resilient and able to not personalize personal attacks and look at a comment or read a message from someone and go, yeah, that says a lot more about them than it does about me, and actually be able to just continue on with my day after it happens. In the beginning, the first time I got attacked online, it took me out for 3 days where it's all I could think about. It was super all consuming and like knocked me on my butt. It was so painful. And now I'm just able to handle it so much better. And that's a gift to me. That's healing. And the more it happens, the more I'm able to, it's kind of like that wound keeps getting poked and I keep healing it. So now it doesn't feel like when it gets poked, it doesn't really even hurt that bad anymore. I'm like, that kind of hurt, but it says more about them than it does about me. And I carry on. And it's just a gift. It's a gift to have healed in that way. And then I would say the other thing that was the hardest part for me was actually just getting in the arena and doing this. I am not kidding. It would take me 15 minutes to sit down and get on the mic the first few episodes, because I would be so like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So awkward. And then I would look at what content we produced and I'd say like, this is bad. This is so cringy. And we would talk about it and be like, well, this is the best we can do right now. And it's going to be a really long time before it gets better because we're just going to have to keep failing forward. So let's just put it out. And I look back on some of our early episodes and some of our early Instagram posts, and I absolutely cringe. But that's the only way forward, is getting in the arena and sucking until you don't quite suck as much anymore. And I would say I am not where I want to be as a podcast host, but I'm so much better than I was a year ago. And a year from now, I'll be better than I am now. And the only way forward is failing forward. And for me, I came into this still really struggling with perfectionism. I've always struggled with perfectionism. So the idea of putting things out in the world that I knew wasn't that great, so hard, but very healing, because I had to get comfortable with the feeling of not being perfect, because I'm never going to put something out that I think is absolutely perfect. I just have to keep going forward.
So that's the hard stuff. But what have you loved most about podcasting so far in this past year?
I would say hands down, and it was very unexpected, the amount of people from my past that I haven't spoken to in years coming out of the woodworks to support. So unexpected and beautiful and freaking cool. People I would never have, and this is actually, it's cool, but it's hard, but people I would never imagine supporting me have been sending me text messages or sliding in my DMs and just loving on me. And I'm just so grateful for it. And then I probably should have said this in the first section of what I've hated is there's also a lot of people I thought that would have been supportive that are not at all. And that was challenging too. But I would say that the overwhelming majority have been really supportive and kind. And then not only that, I've met so many cool new people. And that's been an incredible experience, just making new friends through putting ourselves out there online and new communities. That aspect has been really life-changing.
Yeah.
And then I'd say the other thing that I love, which I don't know if I would say I love it, but it's been the thing I've probably learned the most, is no one is going to come and give you permission to tell your story. No one is going to come and give you permission to have a podcast. No one is going to give you permission for anything. And if you feel called to doing something, you actually just have to do it. It's actually the same as no one's going to come and save you either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a really big learning experience. I think for so many years, I had this thought. Honestly, it was probably pinned on my Pinterest board since I was like a young girl of someday your life will be the roadmap that you hand to someone else that's going to help them, or like the survival map that's going to help someone else through their own troubles. And I've always thought that was such a beautiful concept, and I've always wanted to do that. But you can't give someone the survival map they need unless you actually start sharing your struggles and your story and how you overcame them. And no one's going to give you permission in a microphone to do that. You take it. You build that opportunity. You say, I'm going to go help people no matter the cost. And you get on a mic and you do it, and you'll make the impact. But if you want that, if that's something you feel like you're called to do or God is calling you to do, no one's going to just hand you an opportunity. You make the opportunity. I would say that's one of the things I've loved learning. And it's also been one of the hardest things to learn, all kind of wrapped in one. What about you? What have you loved?
So I think there's two things that I have loved the most. The first is just being in the arena. Like, as scary as it is, like you said, it's your hardest thing. It is hard, but just feeling like I'm living a life. I feel like I'm living. Like, I'm actually putting myself out there. I'm actually kind of stripping away the armor, if you will. And as scary as that is, and as hard as it is, it does feel like I'm in the arena. I am speaking out about what I believe. And that feels like a calling and a purpose. And the other thing that I've loved most, kind of tied to that, which is that it opened the door for coaching men and couples, and you coaching women. For me, there's nothing better than watching a man understand his relationship dynamics and be able to show up differently in those dynamics. Like, I've coached men who have had to go through breakups and process them, and then they don't have the anxiety or the like need. You know how a lot of men will like get really anxious and constantly text their ex or whatever. It's like watching them be able to hone those feelings and master them, watching them understand what's happening inside the dynamic and maybe fix it and not go through a breakup. That's been really cool too. Yeah, watching men who get really angry and do things that they wouldn't want to do, like react in certain ways, and watch them learn how to control their reactions and respond better. Just these like results that I've been able to actually coach men. And I had no idea that the podcast was going to open up that door. I kind of thought maybe at some point that would be cool, but it was something I had no idea about. And it's really just been remarkable this past year, being able to work with different men and watch them grow and heal and change their life.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. An unexpected journey, to say the least.
Yeah, that's what I've loved the most. And also, I'll throw it in, is the messages from people. The random messages we get are just awesome, and I love hearing them, that something we said on our podcast helped someone. So what for you has been the most like unexpected part of all this?
Ooh, I think that probably coaching is the biggest surprise, because as you said, that wasn't the intended goal at all. And now it's something I get to do that I'm so passionate about and so fulfilled by. And I just did not see that coming. And then I would say the other thing that was unexpected, I guess, unexpected lesson I learned is You just have to believe in yourself. I had to believe that we could have a podcast. I had to believe that people would eventually start listening to it. I had to believe I could coach people. All things that my fear, doubt, negative self-talk, honestly, past wounds wanted to tell me I couldn't do and keep me from becoming. And the power of belief is, I think, the most unexpected lesson I learned, that fundamentally, if you just believe, you can make it happen. If you don't believe you can, it will never happen. And that's, for some reason, that's a lot easier to comprehend to me, is like, well, if you don't believe you can, it won't happen. It's like, yeah, well, no shit, Sherlock. But then it's, if you believe it can, it will happen. I go, really? Like, but for sure. And no, it's true. If you believe it can happen, you will actually align your actions with making it happen, and it will. So I think those would be the unexpected learning lessons for me, along with how to work with you. But what are some of the unexpected learning lessons for you?
I think first and foremost is producing the podcast. Learning how to produce a podcast was so difficult and a lot more effort than I thought. I was like, audio, video, what's there to it? And just the amount of podcasts that I've lost, like the little things, learning it all. I figured I would just do it. And I never really thought about it. And then the best unexpected thing has been how many new friends we've met. How many new friends? I was just messaging one of my friends this morning. We've had him on the podcast, Nosh. I would have never met him had I not started this journey and joined communities of other people who are doing it. Like, learning these people and meeting them and talking to them and then becoming friends with them has been such a wild ride. It was the most unexpected for me. I didn't really realize that part of it, but that's a huge part of it. Community is so necessary. If you don't have community, you're probably going to burn out doing it. You have to find people who are doing it also. When it's just like if you want to learn a sport, you probably need to go join, a community club or somebody doing it and meet people who can play with you, because you just get really lonely when you're like, we were lonely when we first started doing this, and we weren't really talking about it other than on the podcast. And it was almost like, are people okay that we're doing this? Are they afraid? Are people we know afraid that we're going to talk about them? Like, it was just kind of this weird thing. Like, yeah, we have a podcast, and then you meet other people who have podcasts or have YouTube channels who post online, and you're like, oh, this is all the things that I'm experiencing are normal. This is totally normal. This is what everybody goes through that has a podcast. And yeah, just becoming friends with all those people has been a huge thing. Becoming friends with our listeners. There's so many listeners that message us when they hear one of our episodes, and like, it is so cool to hear your feedback. I love getting your messages. I love hearing about what resonated. I love it if you have ideas. Like, we get podcast idea. This right here was Shannon's idea to do a update, and I was like, episode 50. What a better time to do it than so. Just having people give us ideas and bring them into what we're doing is so cool. It's been the most unexpected but awesome thing to have people supporting it.
Yeah,
so,
and
thank you.
I think the silliest unexpected win for us is the girls think it's so cool that they get to tell their friends that we have a podcast, and they think we're famous, which I think is also funny. We have to keep telling them, like, no, like, not a lot of people actually know who we are.
We're not going to get noticed at In and Out.
Like, you don't have to worry about that. We are not celebrities.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cute.
It is cute. Yeah. It is cool. I think it's really cool to give them the gift of pursue your dreams. If you have a dream, if you have a vision, then go for it, and yeah, you might fail. It might turn into nothing, but at least you tried, and you probably won't fail because who you become through that is the most important. That's the biggest
That's it
unexpected.
right there. I
Like,
don't know how we missed that
yeah,
one. Talk about that.
how it's like our past year, everything we did, the podcast, the coaching, all of it has been awesome. But who we've become throughout this process is the biggest gift of all, because embracing our fear, embracing those challenges. I mean, we can list 27 more hard things about doing a podcast, and frustrating moments, how difficult working together has been, or just, yeah, every week facing a new challenge of like, what are we going to come up with? What do we want to talk about? What do we do when we don't agree? And it's all forced us to become people who are somewhat comfortable on the microphone and comfortable in front of the camera. And like, it just forced us to work on ourselves. It's been a mirror. And it's not fun. I'd rather stare directly into the sun than into the mirror any day, to quote Taylor Swift. But you can tell I have little girls, or I live in a house with girls. But I would. The mirror is so painful to, like, editing your own podcast is treacherous sometimes with the things you say, the slip ups, but it's forced me to confront myself in ways that I never, ever would have. Never would have. And it's also given me a confidence that I can tap into when I sit down to talk in front of a camera. I don't really look at the camera. It doesn't really bother me that the cameras are there anymore. It used to, but now it doesn't. When the lights are on, it doesn't really, like, I don't get weird feelings anymore in my body. Where I remember, this is kind of a tangent, but I remember being at work years ago, and I was a director in the company, and then we had like a media team that was filming me create this video, like what was I doing? It was like a video for orientation for new people on my team, or just anyone in the company, like, who am I? And I remember sitting down in front of the lights, in front of the camera, and kind of getting shell shocked and just being like, what do I say? How do I say this? What's going on? And getting almost like triggered in my body. I lost all my confidence and my security. I was a director for the company. I think I was maybe a senior director at the time. I knew everyone that worked for the company. If somebody was coming into the company, it's likely that I would have hired them and interviewed them. Like, it wasn't anything to be afraid of, but just the camera and the lights kind of got to me. And all to say, it's all just a mirror reflecting back to me that I had insecurities I had to face and to step into my confidence. Who would you say you've become throughout this process?
Me. I think just a better version of myself, as cliche as that actually sounds coming out of my mouth. But I think anything can become a mirror if you allow it to, meaning anything can reveal the parts of you that you need to see in order to grow. Anything can be a mirror if you're willing to actually look inward and see what it is that needs healing, really. And this podcast was a large avenue of that for me. I needed to heal my insecurities around what people thought about me. I actually would say, like, this is something I've probably not shared on the podcast. Maybe I have, but I had massive, massive fear around being vulnerable, where I was very guarded before the podcast. And I would say I stopped being as guarded around the time we met. You had a lot to do with breaking down a lot of my walls, but this podcast has forced me to break down a lot of my guardedness and walls in order to be more honest, more vulnerable, because I believe that it matters to tell my story in a way that is vulnerable so that I can help others. But it's deeply uncomfortable for me to do so. And I've had to do a lot of healing to be able to share on here. And I think it's to me, that's really God saying you're limiting yourself. I can use you, and you're not willing to do the work to be used if you don't heal to become more vulnerable to more people. And so this podcast has been that avenue for me of, oh man, I got to put in work so I can actually get on here and say what I need to say. And that's just translated to me actually being more vulnerable in my day-to-day life with people when I see them, because I truly, there's just not a lot I can hide anymore. I've pretty much said it all on here, and that's kind of freeing, to be honest, to say, to come on here and just lay it all out there. Really, at the end, I'm left here going, take it or leave it. I've said it all. And there's, I think, a lot of freedom in that. And that's been really beautiful for me to have grown into becoming that person.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a double edge. I mean, that's the thing. Like the pros and the cons are the same thing. We have to the difficulty is that we feel stripped down and naked. The pro and the joy in it is that we are finally stripped down and naked and free from hiding behind certain versions of ourselves or versions of ourselves that we created to keep ourselves safe.
Yeah, and I think what's really, and this is going to be a very weird build onto that analogy, but when you do strip down and you get naked, for the most part, people are not laughing at you going like, ha ha ha, that's what you look like under there. For the most part, people are going, oh my gosh, I have cellulite and a little belly fat, and, you know, I look like you too. And I mean that as in on the inside. We all have very similar struggles and insecurities and challenges and wounds. And so I've found that I didn't get made fun of when I got naked on here. I got people reaching out to me saying, I felt so seen when you shared that, because me too, I've experienced that as well. And that's why I did it. Makes me even emotional saying that, but like, that's the whole point, is for us to see each other.
Yeah.
And for people to feel less alone in their struggles.
Well, that's what we started it. I remember, and probably I was going to ask you what your favorite podcast moment was, but I'll just share mine first because it goes with that. I believe it was episode 1. We didn't really record in order. Like the episodes we put out were kind of just the ones that we had together at the time, but it was like pretty close to episode 1. Maybe it's 2 or 3. And I remember asking you, why do you want to start this podcast? And you went, to be honest, I don't. I just really know that it could help people by like sharing your story, confessing your experience to the world. And that was such a raw, beautiful moment. And I will remember that as, it'll probably be my favorite podcast moment of all time, always. Yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, sometimes that's even still true.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't feel like getting on the mic and I don't feel like sharing. And like the defensiveness episode, it's basically me talking about how defensive I am. And that's one of our most listened to episodes of all time. I watch the numbers like climb and climb and climb on that episode. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what? But you can't control that. And that's the whole point, right? Is that means that people saw that episode title and went, oh yeah, struggling with this in my relationship, I'm going to listen. And hopefully it helps. Hopefully they felt seen in it. But I still, even after episodes, will have a little like vulnerability hangover where I'm like, oh, I'm telling everybody about that. Dang.
What is your favorite podcast moment? If your memory can serve you up one. Your memory is kind of tricky sometimes.
I don't know if I have a moment. I think actually I would say it's not a moment. I think some of my favorite memories, or I would say like memory, is in the early days in the shop when we were just like very early starting to record, we'd both be so nervous that we would put on Zach Bryan and what was it, like the Boys of
Faith.
Which like no idea how that's relevant to this podcast.
It just was a calming song.
Yeah.
We just liked it.
We would slow dance to it in order to, until we felt comfy to get on the mic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably one of my more fond memories.
I think I just always played Zach Bryan at that time.
He was kind of like popping back at that time, or like just starting to pop off.
And when I was working in the shop and getting the podcast stuff ready, it like calmed me down. It just was soothing to me. And then you'd come in and I'd be playing it. So I'd just put that song on. And we'd always make tea right before. We'd have tea, and we stopped drinking tea along with the podcast at some point, but I think it like got in the way.
It was too hard to find a place to sit it, and then it would get cold by the end of the episode.
Yeah, you wouldn't really drink it much.
Yeah, I didn't have anywhere good to.
It was just kind of nice to have a ritual going into the podcast. But yeah, I just remember being really scared going into it about what I would say. So I remember talking slower on the first episodes.
Yes.
Like being very slow to speak. And I remember editing out like big gaps because it would have been painful to listen to had I not. Yeah. And then being scared about the editing process. And I didn't even know I ran into so many issues learning how to edit. The audio would be not clear or just so many issues. It has been a wild, this year changed our life forever.
Yeah. And regardless of what the future looks like, I think it's what we said before. It's who we've become that we'll always have moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the beauty of the journey is it's an unfolding of who we're becoming.
Yeah, and we don't plan on stopping. This isn't like it's been a year, it's over. For me, how do you feel?
No, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're keeping.
I think we'll evolve, and we'll probably come up with new formats. We've tried different things here and there to throw in we go back and forth a lot on this like in the debate about the podcast on whether we want it to be more vulnerable, more educational, or more fun.
Or more interviews.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, please tell us what you like the most.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you'd prefer us to do. I think interviews are fun. We just haven't figured out. Well, one, we do it in person. It's kind of tricky in our house, and we haven't figured out. But we do have some people that we definitely want to bring on, and there will be interviews. And I tend to sometimes be in a mood where I want to be educational about something that I've learned recently or something that we're picking up on in coaching, because we're always doing trainings. I'm starting a 3-month training tonight and on working with men, and we're always going to be wanting to share what we've learned, especially in our trainings and our reading, also in our relationship, and then being vulnerable about our relationship dynamic, but also love to be a little fun sometimes and like goof around too.
Yeah. Well, I think to wrap up this 50th episode, I want to leave with thanking all of you who, and I didn't mean that as like a corny pun. I'm genuinely saying thank you to all of you who have been listening, who have been supporting, who've been loving on us. We're so grateful and genuinely hope that we've provided value to you. We've provided making you feel seen, heard, healing, whatever it is. I hope that you've gotten so much from this. That just brings me so much joy. So thank you.
Yeah, that's the goal, for it to be worthwhile to listen to. So thank you for listening. We really appreciate all the love and support, and feel free to message us anytime on any platform. We check all of it, and we really just love hearing feedback.
Yeah, and I have one more thing I'm going to actually say. Dave and I actually prayed together that this podcast falls into the right ears, and we pray for the people that listen to this podcast. And so I want to tell you, if you're listening to this, we pray for you and we love you. And we're just so grateful that you're in this journey with us. So just want to tell you that you're loved.
Yeah, reach out anytime. We'd love to hear from you.
And that's all from us.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.